Hello and welcome back to Mandy's Not So Small Talk. Today we're exploring how the reflex of purpose is impacted by trauma and why this can create roadblocks in both personal growth and relationships. This concept, rooted in Pavlov's discoveries about human behavior, explains why we're driven by the expectation of meaningful outcomes. But what happens when trauma disrupts this reflex? We'll break down how trauma stops people from moving forward, whether individually or in partnerships. And we'll also explore how healing can restore purpose and foster deeper love, connection, and growth. So by the end, you'll understand why the reflex of purpose matters so much and how to reclaim it for yourself and your relationships. Trauma, whether it's a single catastrophic event or the result of prolonged stress, directly impacts how we view our actions and their outcomes. So the reflex of purpose, our ability to act with intention and meaning, becomes disrupted when trauma rewires the brain to focus on survival instead of growth. Here's how it works. Trauma teaches the brain that certain actions or efforts may lead to pain, rejection, or failure. And over time, this conditions people to associate their effort with futility, causing them to just avoid trying altogether. So this learned helplessness, it reinforces the idea that nothing I do matters, creating a loop of inaction and disconnection. So whether in relationships, careers, or personal growth, trauma can make us feel stuck, as if the future is out of our hands. And the stagnation it's not laziness. It's a protective mechanism, but it also blocks us from moving forward. So individuation is the process of becoming your true, authentic self, discovering who you are outside of the external expectations or like the past conditioning. So for this process to occur, the reflex of purpose, it must be intact. You need to believe that your efforts to grow and change will lead to meaningful outcome. But trauma disrupts this journey in several ways. Fear of failure. If past efforts have been met with criticism, rejection, or pain, you may avoid taking risks or pursuing goals that could bring fulfillment. Loss of identity. So trauma often disconnects people from their actual true selves. So making it difficult to know what they want, what they need. Avoidance of vulnerability. So growth requires self-reflection and openness. But trauma conditions us to see vulnerability as dangerous, keeping us stuck in protective patterns. Okay, so let's do an example. Someone who grew up in a highly critical environment may avoid pursuing their dreams, believing that their efforts will just not be good enough. Or how about a person who experienced betrayal in a past relationship? They may avoid forming close bonds, fearing that it will just lead to the same outcome as before. In both cases, the reflex of purpose, believing that effort leads to meaning, is blocked, leaving the individual feeling stagnant or disconnected from their potential. In relationships, the reflex of purpose, it drives us to invest in our partners, communicate openly, and build intimacy. Trauma, however, can create barriers that prevent these actions from occurring. And here's how it shows up. Fear of rejection. So a person with unresolved trauma may avoid expressing their needs, fearing that they're going to be dismissed or criticized, overcompensating or controlling. So some people, in an attempt to avoid the pain of past experiences, they just want to overfunction in relationships. So they take on too much responsibility, or they're trying to control the dynamic. Then there's also emotional withdrawal. So trauma can lead to shutting down emotionally, making it just difficult to connect with a partner or build trust. So an example is a partner who experienced neglect as a child might struggle to ask for emotional support, believing that their needs will just never be met. Or someone who was betrayed in a previous relationship might monitor their partner's actions excessively, trying to control the outcome to avoid getting hurt. So in both cases, the reflex of purpose, it's distorted, and the actions then are driven more by fear than by a genuine desire to connect. So this not only creates distance, but it also perpetrates cycles of misunderstanding and hurt. So to break free from the paralysis trauma creates, we need to restore the reflex of purpose, individuality, and relationally. So for individuals, this means reconnecting with your true self and taking small intentional steps towards growth. Here's how. Start small. Set tiny, achievable goals that reinforce the idea that your actions matter. For example, commit to journaling for 5 minutes a day or practicing one act of self-care per week. Why this works is small wins rebuild confidence and remind you that effort leads to positive outcomes. 2, challenge your fear-based beliefs. If you've internalized the idea that your actions don't matter, question it. Write it down. Write down evidence of times when your efforts have made a difference, no matter how small. Why this works is that it reframes your mindset, showing you that past failures don't define future outcomes. 3, reconnect with your values. Trauma often disconnects us from what we truly care about. So spend time identifying your core values and what gives your life meaning. So whether it's creativity, relationships, or helping others. And why this works is that knowing your why gives purpose to your actions and it motivates growth. So for couples, restoring the reflex of purpose requires creating an environment where both partners feel safe, seen, and valued. So this starts with shifting how you communicate and respond to each other. And here's how. Replace criticism with appreciation. So instead of saying, "You never help around the house," try, "Hey, I really appreciate when you pitch in. You know, it really makes me feel supported." And why that works? Appreciation reinforces the positive behaviors and reminds a partner that, hey, their efforts matter. Validate, don't dismiss. So if your partner says, "I'm feeling overwhelmed," avoid saying, "It's not a big deal." Instead, try, "That sounds tough. How can I help?" And why this works? Validation rebuilds trust and encourages open communication. Collaborate on goals. Set shared intentions like spending 30 minutes of undistracted time together every evening or planning a weekly date night. Why this works is that shared goals restore purpose and remind both partners that you're working towards a meaningful connection. Foster emotional safety. So when discussing conflicts, avoid blame and focus on understanding instead of, you always ignore me. Try, I feel hurt when I don't feel heard. Can we talk about this? And why this works is that emotional safety allows both partners to express themselves without fear and rebuilding trust and intimacy. All right, so while trauma can feel like an obstacle, it can also be a profound teacher. So by shedding light on the areas where we've lost connection to ourselves or others, it gives us the opportunity to actually rebuild with greater awareness and intention. So the reflex of purpose is at the heart of this process. When we believe our actions matter, when we take steps, no matter how small, to actually grow and connect, we reclaim our agency. Individually, this means embracing the journey of becoming your authentic self. In relationships, it means creating spaces where both partners feel valued and supported. The reflex of purpose reminds us that every action has the potential to create meaning, connection, and growth. So whether you're working on yourself, your relationship, or both, remember that it's not about perfection. It's about showing up with intention and love. So thank you so much for joining me today. And if this episode resonated with you, please, I want to thank you for liking. Make a comment below. I love reading them. And of course, make sure that you're subscribed. And together, we can build a community of healing, connection, and purpose. So, see me in the next video.